Welcome back to part 2 of our apostle James, the son of Alphaeus, James also called the Less, and maybe James the brother of Jesus. And we have a number of possible instances of his impact. We see when Paul comes back to Jerusalem, he's encouraged by James and Peter and John to take care of the poor. He can go ahead in his mission to the Gentiles. They're taking care of the local Jewish community, Jewish Christian community. But take care of the poor, something Paul said he wanted to do anyway, and which he continued doing, as we have evidence in the letters. And then we have his impact at the Council of Jerusalem, which we covered in the first part, and then an impact that reached outside the community of the Christians, because even Flavius Josephus comments on this in the Antiquities of the Jews. And we have a situation where Paul has escaped the clutches of the hostility of many of the Jewish leaders and is appealed to Rome. But James becomes the focal point of this aggression and hostility. And there's a golden opportunity that Ananus, the son of the same name, also high priest, convokes the Sanhedrin of judges to basically condemn this James, who is a truly honored member even outside the Jewish community, outside the disciples of Jesus community. And this is the text. So it's in the gap between two governors. And Festus had died, and the Caesar appointed a replacement with Albinus, who's still on his way to Jerusalem, or to the Roman province at that time of Palestine. And then in that gap, the high priest with the Sanhedrin carry out a sentence which was not in their power. They didn't have authority to execute. And this was done with the brutal act of murder, which is also partially described by Josephus, and which provokes great remorse and complaint from also members of the regular Jewish population in Jerusalem against this injustice, which was also completely outside of their power to do. There we see those aspects of the influence of James beginning to go outside of the community. We talked about James being a very silent man. Silent rivers run deep. And if we want to test this, look at the letter of James, the first of the so-named Catholic letters, because they're addressed to all churches, not to the Romans or the Corinthians or the Galatians. It's just to all Christians. And it starts off with this definition of James, who is a slave of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, a servant of God and the Lord Jesus Christ. And he's writing to the 12 tribes of the dispersion. Again, it's being written to, in that sense, the 12 tribes, also the great Jewish consciousness. And in the first part, we feel about that beautiful olive tree. And the olive tree is the symbol, we're grafted in as Gentiles. And this is James. His letter is so deeply penetrated by that great Jewish tradition of wisdom, the great Jewish scriptures of the chosen people. And it's coming together in the letter with applications for disciples of Jesus. One of the points that always strikes me from the letter of James is the emphasis on the discipline of our tongue, what we say, how we say it, how we speak about people, and how the dominion of the tongue reflects the perfect person. Jesus already had said that of what the heart is full, the mouth speaks. And James is very, very harsh on those who speak badly. It's a fire you cannot put out. It does irreparable damage. It's equivalent to murder. And it's interesting because James was a man who was very scarce in words. The silent James is now very eloquent about dominion of the tongue because he had dominion of his tongue. He didn't speak rashly, suddenly, without reflection, just to say something, to ask a question, just to be there asking a question. He pondered, he understood, and he's teaching that great value. It's coming out of his heart. It's what he already lived. And then we have a James whose family was totally committed to Christ. And it was not a path of words. He was walking the talk. His mother was at Calvary. And he knows how to teach about the need to allow our faith, through which we're saved, to be expressed in deeds of charity for the poor. He had encouraged Paul to take care of the poor. And his letter is very strong against those who are selfish with their riches. So we see a great continuity of thought and life of this James, son of Alphaeus, in the few pencil traits we have, and then the content we have in the letter of James. Thank you for joining us to contemplate this great apostle, one of the 12. It's an invitation to go out into the deep in our following of Christ with deeds, with a transformed life, and also especially in the characteristic of speaking well of others. What a challenge for all of us. What a road to purification of our hearts, so that only good will come out, because that's all that should be inside towards every person around us. We come back to speak of a challenging apostle, and we'll be talking about the mystery involved in the person of Judas Iscariot in the next session.